Okay, I think we are live in YouTube. So, hello everybody. This is the release working group meeting. Is the last meeting that we are going to have in July, and today is 25 of July, 2024. First of all, there is any announcement that you want to make? Aside of that, please add your names to the meeting notes. Okay, I guess that's a no for the announcements. Okay, so first topic in the agenda today is to discuss about the current status of the LTS group backporters. So this is the issue 1012 in the release repository. Let me also pass the link in the chat. Let's see what it's about. I think the original question was posted by Marco. And if I remember well, we have a little bit of discussion last time, right?
Yeah, I could not attend last time, so I think I need to catch on that. So like my point was that basically we have we are two teams in reality. We are releasers and backporters.
Yep.
And like backporters would probably make sense for people who want to get involved with release, so they can prepare a release for stay like do stuff on backport on staging branch and like do many other things, but not have release um, privilege. But the distinction between releaser and LTS, like I was not aware of it until I read the documentation. And there is part of the documentation that are not updated, and they say that only uh, people that are in the LTS release group in the LTS group can perform LTS release. But like I'm not in that group and I'm performing LTS release, so either like we enforce this rule or we get rid of the LTS group.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah, I think the part of the backport is clear, and I think also is a very good way the people to get involved in the release working group in general. If they want to become releasers one day, it's also a very good option to get involved. So that I think is clear. Regarding how the LTS team works currently, I think maybe the question there was like if we need to rethink a little bit of if this is still a thing today, not we want to enforce it. So yeah, I'm with you on this, Marco. Also, I'm one of the newest in the team, so probably don't have all the historical context.
The historical context was that the release working group was originally the LTS team. So,
Okay.
so before the group was chartered, there was an LTS team that looked after LTS releases, and current releases were done, I don't know, I guess out of the yeah, by releases, but sort of linked to the project, sort of, I guess, under the TSC. And then sort of current releases and LTS were bolted together and sort of joined and formed the release working group. As far as teams in GitHub go, the releases team is an access team, and if you're on the releases team, you get added to all sorts of things like Jenkins, for example, so you can see the CI release. The LTS team doesn't give you access to anything. It's like a meta team. And again, the original sort of historical purpose was the LTS team was for discussing long-term support policy and contents of long-term support releases. So there is, I think we did update the README at one point to say that to do like an LTS release, you kind of there was an addendum to say you should be in the LTS team as well, but that was both you would need to be in the LTS team and the releases team because it's the releases team that gives you access to all the release infrastructure. And I think the idea behind the LTS, so the original idea for the LTS team was talking about LTS policy, and then that bit in the README about being in the LTS team to do LTS releases, I think that was some sort of, I guess, like an additional gatekeeping to in the same way, I guess that new releases don't go straight into doing an LTS release. Kind of, we want to do what we want to do at least a current release first, and be comfortable before sort of allowing them to do LTS releases. I suspect we could. I don't know if they necessarily need to be in the LTS team because I don't think anything checks that. So, other than us in this group, and sort of discussing who wants to volunteer to do releases and who does releases. Yeah, I that particular note in the README, I'm not too hung up about. If we want to change that, change that.
Would the
I
team be okay, like to just like make the process a bit slimmer and remove the LTS team and just like incorporate it into release and we call it release in the scheme?
I guess so. So I guess the difference is, so like you said, at the moment, there's no real difference between, well, sorry, that the LTS team is a subset of the releases team, but it wasn't always. And I believe at one point there were people in the LTS team that were not releases. And the reason for that was that they were interested in the policy, but they weren't interested in actually doing releases. So, for example, if you were interested in deploying applications on Node, you might be interested in what sort of things end up in an LTS release of Node if you were if you were planning to run all your production applications on it. We haven't made drastic changes to LTS policy in recent years. I mean, we tweaked it here and there, mainly around like time spans, and I think tightening up some languages, but I think the general policy has been more or less stable over the years. So we could remove it. I did mention, I think either in this issue or one of the other issues, that there is a distinction between the teams that are teams because they give you access to things, and the teams that maybe should be pinged because people want to be notified if there's something relevant to the team being pinged. And maybe in practice, because we don't actually have anyone who wants to be pinged, or at least nobody left in the LTS team that's not in the releases team that would like to be pinged, then maybe it doesn't matter. So we could get rid of it, I guess. I don't mind either way. So, if you really feel we should get rid of it, then
Yeah, I mean, this would also be the chance to ping people to see if they're still interested in to see if they want to be involved or not, because like some people that are on the LTS team are not releasers and or have like probably left they're like emeritus releases. So like if there is interest, we can reconsider. Otherwise, we can.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a good idea. If people want to still discussing about policies, we can just maybe rename it to policy team and just discuss about policy. But I think the discussion of policies will be open anyway in this forum and offline as well. So even if you are not a member of the team, you're super welcome to discuss in online and offline. So yeah, I'm +1 on asking for removal and see if anyone has a different ideas on the team or is using LTS team for something else and we are not aware of, and we can just reconcile the idea. So okay, so potential action, yeah. Who want to take a leadership on asking
Yeah,
for
I can
removal?
volunteer. I can like comment under the issue that I can ping the LTS team. Let's say, hey, like I think we have consensus that we can like merge the LTS team, the releaser team, or just remove it at all. So is there still someone who is interested in this LTS team or not?
Fantastic.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind removing the team. And if anybody wants to discuss LTS policy, they should probably come to the release working group, right?
Yep. Fair point. Yeah, I added some notes also on this. Please check it out in case that I missed something. But yeah, it was a super brief summary. Next topic in the agenda is creating a branch rule for non-LTS staging branches. I think that was an action pending from this. This is the issue 1004.
Who did someone volunteer to take action on this one? Because I think like I missed I think one meeting, but the last time I remember we had consensus on
Yeah.
like have only backporters and releasers be able to push in staging branches, backporters, and we had verify commit signatures, so we would need a rule to enforce that.
Yeah, I can't remember. I've got a feeling there were rules that were drafted but not enabled. So I think if you actually go to core repo and look, I think there was a rule that was created but it wasn't enabled, so it wasn't being enforced. And I think they were different because, historically they were different for current releases versus the LTS branches. But I think, we kind of sort of said in the previous meeting we weren't sure why they would need to be different. So yeah, I guess that needs someone to just review that and make them live, I guess.
Yeah, I messed up in the comment on the chat, but yeah, I think last time I think Antoine was here, or we reviewed the comment from Antoine, and he was proposing like an alternative option, who was to use signed commits instead of branch protection the rules, so that way even like potential releases or people who want to collaborate, preparing a release just to taking a feel of how is the feeling of this. Might not be blocked by the branch rule, so maybe that can be another option. I think if I follow up correct with the discussion. Maybe I put the wrong link. Let me see. Yeah, sorry, I passed the wrong link. This one it is. Yeah, it
Like,
got
I
mixed.
don't think they are mutually exclusive in the way, like, having signed commits is good, but doesn't prevent, like, people to push on staging branch. While, like, if you're interested in getting into releases, then you can, like, you show up and you get added to the backporters team, and, like, you can safely start backporting and, like, pair with someone. I think it's reasonable rather than someone decides tomorrow that he wants to push stuff on staging branch and just does.
Well,
Yeah,
also, a signed commit just means it's signed. It's not. it's a layer of an extra layer. But I mean, if you edit a file in GitHub and commit that, the commit gets signed by GitHub's key. So it offers a little bit of protection, but it's not quite the same as any TSC member can push to that. Which, okay, TSC has an element of trust, but then not all TSC members are releases, so it's
that's true.
So yeah, I agree with you that it's not either or. We could have both, and that could be a thing. I don't know, Ulysses, is there anything in like the OpenSSF recommendations that discuss branch protection rules or things like that?
I think it's important to have, like, if I understood well from the recommendations, like it's important to have like branch protection, but in our case it's a little bit tricky because even if you, even if you force put something to the branch, you still need some additional step until you make the release of it into, for the end users and so on. But you can poison obviously the branch, but somehow we will notice that in the difference maybe in the changelog and stuff because we have like a lot of automation. But yeah, it might be a little bit tricky because some releases have like a hundreds of commits. So
yeah, if you have like 400, like I think it happened to have a release of 400
yeah,
commits, it's very hard to manually check the source code of each one of them.
Yeah.
So I think it's something that it's important.
yeah. Yeah, but having the rule of having like backporters and releasers into
Yeah.
the branches make totally sense, because also the requirements for adding someone new to the backporter team is just asking for it and to get access, right? We don't provide any additional, well, now you will get an additional access to these branches, right? But in general, the requirements
Well, the
for
backporters already have access to the staging branches. So I believe the issue was raised because there were a few. I think the staging branch for current wasn't protected. It might be now, but it wasn't before. So all of the LTS staging branches were protected, and they were only allowed backporters and releases to commit to them. I think the current branch either wasn't protected or was only like releases.
It
I
was
can't.
for collaborators only. Like everyone that's a
yeah.
collaborator push on it was not. Like,
So yeah, it's kind of like, and then there was discussion about having a branch protection rule for that, and then you know in the previous meeting here we then discussed, well, should they be any different? Because ultimately it's still releases that do releases, even for
Yeah.
current. So do we want all the collaborators able to push or force push the current stage and branch? Does that help? Does it not help? I mean, in practice, does it even happen? But if it doesn't happen, then the protection rule wouldn't actually, it would offer protection and not stop anyone doing what they're currently doing anyway. So yeah, I think the only issue was that came up in the last discussion was, should they be the same rule, which I think we thought they should be. And well, mainly so that it sort of saves. I think if I remember, the protection rule had to be written because it used like regular expressions to match the branch name, so it had to be a
Yep.
bit special to exclude the current. One rule that excluded the current staging branch, but all the other staging branches, and then one specifically with the current staging branch. And it's kind of like, well, if they don't have to be different, then it's a lot easier to make them the same.
So to recap, like I think we have consensus that we should have backporters and releases
Yes, because
only.
if we don't have backporters, then nobody can help prepare a release unless they're a releaser. But one of the steps of becoming a releaser is prepare a release. So if you're in
Yeah.
that state, you need to somehow be able to push to a staging branch. And given that backporters are already able to push to staging branches, at least the LTS staging branches, that seems to be a good compromise. So if we haven't already updated the onboarding, we should say that you should be added to the backporters prior to preparing a release. But yeah, keep the backporters team around and have them added to the branch protections for the staging branches. I mean, we could even, I'm pretty certain we've got protections for the non-staging release branches. So like 22, 20.x, and that, for example, that could just be the releases, whereas the staging could be releases and backporters. So yeah, that would be nice in that sense. In that there's a distinction between the backporters team and the releases team. And it might be at various points that the backporters team is the same as the releases team, but the intention is that the backporters team should always be, be able to include people that aren't releases.
Yeah, sounds good. So I think we need someone to take action, to volunteer, like to. I think next step is to ping on the issue, say, hey, this is what consensus is, and find a volunteer that updates the rule and the onboarding documentation.
I think we will need to bring this to the TC for the change, or anyone who is a TC member or super admin of the org can do
We
it.
can let them know, but I thought I think that's under our delegated responsibilities, but
Mhm.
you know, if someone else wants to double check that or still go to TC, I don't mind. But you know, I
Sure.
kind of feel that the release this working group has management of the release branches. So you know, I don't think I don't think our working group could put anything on like the main branch, because the main branch is the main, you know, that is under the TSC, but everything release related, as far as I'm concerned, has been delegated to this working group.
Mhm.
And there are areas where we, you know, traditionally collaborate. So, for example, we have the December majors and stuff. We still get TSC sign-offs. That's kind of just because that's the policy we decided on. But
Yep.
technically, we have full autonomy to decide what actually goes into a release. So, but you know, we don't want to be antagonistic with the rest of the project. So, yeah, there is, you know, what has been delegated to us, and then there's, you know, what we do in terms of policy because we want broader agreement. But equally, I don't think, you know, we need to be blocked on getting agreement from the rest of the project. At least for the,
Fantastic.
you know, at least for the staging branch, the release branches and staging branches.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think that was a great recap. I think last thing for us is to include someone volunteers to lead this.
I won't have time this week, and I'm away next week. If it's still around after that, I might be able to do it. But yeah,
Okay.
it won't be soon.
Okay. Okay, I will add as a potentially Richard. Richard. Okay. Potentially Richard. I can lead it. Okay. I think next issue is 999, which was related to the onboarding of Antoine. If I recap correctly from the previous meetings, Richard volunteered to help Antoine, if I remember well, and the idea was to let Antoine prepare another release
So my
before.
recollection was he wanted to prepare another release. So
Yep.
you know, we asked and he wanted to wait. So I guess we asked him again.
Fantastic.
But I don't want to pressure him. So, you know, Antoine, if you're watching this or you read the notes, you know, it's entirely up to you when you feel ready to. So I think the rest of well, I personally, I'm, you know, fully, I have no objections and, you know, fully encourage making Antoine a full releaser. And I suspect a lot of the rest of the working group feel the same. But equally, you know, we're not going to force you to become a releaser. So when you feel ready, I don't think there's any objections from the rest of us to you know to completing the onboarding. So again, that's yeah, we'll work with him to hit whatever timeline he feels comfortable with. But yeah, I don't
Yeah, I
think
mean,
there's any
he's
blocking.
also working on the tooling for the release, the automation.
Yeah,
So
and that's great. You
yeah,
know, any tooling.
yeah.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Yes, I will leave a note. So yeah, it's going to be like no objections from the team so far. We feel confident. I think that's a full agreement. And yeah, we are kind of waiting for Antoine's decision, but no rush. So that sounds okay. Yeah, I think we should jump to I think we are good on time today. Should we jump to the release plan for 20 and 18? I think I'm missing.
22 is above.
Oh,
22
22 is
is
above. I mix up with the comments. Okay, that makes total sense. Sorry, my fault. I will fix that in the note in a moment. Okay, yeah. So, yeah, I just made the order wrongly. Sorry for that. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, jumping to the release plan. For 22, I think. Let me see, which is the issue 1001. Let me pass the link into the chat. Okay, let's see how we are in terms of volunteers here. So,
I think I
Looks
saw
like
Raphael.
Raphael volunteered. Like he also told me privately that he wants to to the next one. So I think we have.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we are kind of okay for the 22. We have a meeting just after that release, so should be fine. Yeah, okay, that sounds good. Let's check what about 20?
I need to add myself to 60.
Okay.
On 20, I can, like, if nobody else wants to do it, like, I don't want to take this honor from anybody, but like, if nobody wants to do it, I'm available.
Okay. Yeah, I think also summer is a little bit tricky because some of us we are going to be like in holidays and stuff like that, so it might be a little bit tricky. So, yeah, thanks, Marco, for stepping up. Fantastic. I mean, stepping in. Yeah. Okay, so that's good. Okay, and I think 18 we are, I think, not planning yet to do a release for 18, as far I know.
So there's one commit on the stage. Sorry, I think there's two commits on the staging branch, but one is a sort of test fix. One is a regression fix, but it's not. Well, obviously, if you're suffering from it, it's a regression, but it's not enough to cause us to spin a release on its own. But
Okay.
equally, if we do a release, we will include it. Other than that, it will just be the only other things I know of are dependency updates, like update npm, update core
Yeah.
path.
Yeah.
Equally, if people do have fixes, which there is a bar for putting things to 18 now that it's in maintenance. So
Yeah.
we'll balance them. Definitely no performance changes and things for stuff in maintenance, just because even if it does make things faster, if it opens up a race condition because of something else, then that's bad. So
That's bad. Yeah.
18 is kind of like we will just monitor the commits and what's illegible or what we feel needs to be cherry picked across to 18. But 18 is in maintenance, so we would want to keep stuff going in there to a minimum. And yeah, I mean the reason we update dependencies is just in case we get security issues down the line, and going stepwise on dependencies is much better than having to do a jump.
Yeah, that's
Kind
true.
of pressured security release, so there's always that.
That's true.
So yeah, 18, I guess we just keep monitoring, and I'm sure there will be an 18 release at some point before next year's end of life. But yeah, when that will be, whether that's a month's time or 2 months' time, we'll just play it by ear, I guess.
Yeah. I think we don't have like a super rush at all, right? And we still have like if I remember well, like almost 1 year, right? It's going to be like finishing on
It's
April.
Yeah, April, May.
Yeah, April, May. So yeah, we
No,
still have
it is April. It is April. Yeah.
It's April. Okay, yeah. So we still have like a bunch of time. So yeah, I'm pretty sure we can do like an additional release maybe when we are getting closer to that time, or maybe before the end of the year, if that makes sense. And we have people that want to volunteer aside of the security ones, right? Because I don't think we want to mix that with the next security release, right? We want to do it like security only.
Well, yeah, definitely. Normally not.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, makes total sense. Also because nothing of that is related to the infrastructure, right? In terms of no, nothing related to something that
not
CI. No, not at all.
Well, not that I'm aware of. There might be a few test fixes we'll need to port back.
Yeah.
So I am aware that so we're on this quick TLS fork of OpenSSL. So I am aware that OpenSSL have a version that the quick TLS fork hasn't picked up yet. But some of Node's OpenSSL tests break on the new version of OpenSSL. So there are test fixes in main and current. They may have gone into 2016 as well. I think some of them did. So again, if I haven't already pulled them onto 18, they could be pulled back to 18. But it's all theoretical because at the moment we're still on the quick TLS fork. But it might affect people building Node 18 against their own OpenSSLs if they're they've got a system OpenSSL
Mhm.
or a externally compiled OpenSSL at, I can't remember now, it's 3.0.14 or 13, whatever the point patch release, higher than the quick TLS fork that we've got in Node 18 is. So again, I wouldn't necessarily rush a release out for that, because if you're building your own node, you've already got the source, so you can patch the source. But if that quick TLS fork ever does update, then yeah, we will need those test fixes. But again, for a security release, then that's not so bad, because we backport test fixes so that we can get a clean CLI on the security release. But other than that, yeah, it's,
Fantastic. Yeah, I think last topic in the agenda then is like in the official agenda is like cannon in the gold mine. So it's the issue 1060. This has been discussed a lot, I guess,
yeah.
recently with the last
Okay.
release. Yeah.
Just an FYI. So we had a regression in Node 22.50
Yep.
that SitGym was affected by but didn't fail for.
Yeah, that's a good definition. Yeah.
That's been fixed now. In that, what happened in that case was that we broke npm's ability to install anything, and SitGym failed to install packages, didn't run any tests, and basically we had a Jenkins option that ignored no results in the JUnit XML file that comes out the end of SitGym. So even though no tests ran, that was being treated as a pass. We've changed that, so no tests run is now a fail. There might be some other corner cases in SitGym that are preventing it writing results out, but at least that's better than we were before. So yeah. So yeah, unfortunately, although SitGym was affected by the regression in 22.50 because the build didn't fail, we didn't spot it. But had the build failed, we would have spotted it, or hopefully would have spotted it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that was a pretty nasty regression in 22.50. So yeah, that's now been fixed. So yeah, there was that for SitGym, and then yeah, there's the usual modules that we get them passing, start failing again, get them passing again.
Yeah.
It's difficult because we've basically got two moving targets. We've got the modules themselves and we've got Node. Both of them move. There has been suggestions before that we stop, we freeze the modules so that the modules aren't a moving target. But the problem with that is that if we're on testing on some version of the module and don't update that, then we will fall very far behind the version of the modules that are being used by end users. So, we might run module at version X, but all the users are running module at version Y, and we've actually broken module at version Y, but not module at version X. So,
yeah, it won't solve the problem. Yeah, and also add overhead, right? Because we'll need to look to manually or somehow periodically update that, right, and review. So it's more work.
So I think the main problem with SitGym is unless someone has this bright idea that can add even more automation or scanning or something on top of it, it needs constant maintenance, as in not well, there's SitGym itself, but then there's also the lookup. So the lookup needs maintenance to, or the results need people to look through and say, like, this module is now incredibly flaky and we either need to remove it or get it fixed. And that's just ongoing work, which no one really is that enthusiastic about doing. So the main issue with SitGym is it sort of gets patched up a bit and then drifts, and then people get really annoyed and get patched up again, and then it drifts. So yeah, I don't have a better solution at the moment to how we make this better. The ideal situation is if we could ever get it passing, then it's much easier to then exclude something if it starts failing. But we've never actually got it to the stage where it's passing. I think we may have been close.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's tricky. And I don't know what, we have removed a lot of the parallelism. So, Citgem only runs one instance of the job at a time, which does mean that if you're trying to if you're trying to do two Citgem runs to compare, one has to wait for the other one to complete.
Yeah.
But it means they're not competing for resources. So Citgem even used to try and install modules in parallel and test them in parallel, but we turn that off in the CI, so the CI takes a bit longer now to run Citgem, but it is running one module at a time. So again, there should be less contention. So if we do get timeouts, then that might be machine or network, which there's very little we could do.
Yeah, that's a very good definition. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I was thinking that maybe this is one of these things that we might not be easy for us to find any collaborator or volunteer to keep this up and running, right? So we might want to have like a more ambitious plan and maybe try to get like some resources and finance these initiatives just to make it green and from that keep it. So maybe that can be something that we can discuss higher level, but
Yeah,
not
maybe.
very sure also if it's going to be like working for a long term, right? Or just one thing. We get some breath now, but maybe later on it's
I
not
mean,
working.
there have been suggestions in the past, like maybe the CI could automatically run Citgem on one version and then on another version and compare the results. I think the idea is, sounds good. I think that might be very tricky to implement. Not the rerunning part, but I think the comparison part might be interesting to compare the test output from, because we if you look at the Citgem output, all the different modules tend to use their own,
Yeah, they use different
they use
runners.
different test runners or different output thing. And even if, the same module on two different versions should theoretically be using the same runners.
Yeah.
I don't know that the ordering of the output would be consistent. So for example, if a test runner decides to run tests in parallel, for example, Node itself can run tests in parallel. I know for certain that means that if you run the tests twice, they may not come out in the same order because the ordering depends on which test is completed
that's
when.
correct.
So although the idea is fairly sound, that usually we were trying to look for regressions. So if you had a Citgem from a previous release and then the Citgem from the current release, or so the release that's been tested, then if you could somehow compare those, you could then spot the regressions. But I suspect that's a lot more engineering work than it sounds. But if someone wants to do that, then we can experiment.
Yeah, we can do some experiments. I was thinking that maybe, but maybe I'm going too far. If we can just get the outputs right from two different runs of the Canary in the Gold Mine, maybe we can just pass those to a maybe LLM model and ask like, can you spot the differences and try to help us a little bit? But not very sure if that's going to be like very very efficient or very, I mean, we can do some experiments and try to make it more funny, but I don't think it's going to be like very trustful, right? I mean, at least I don't think that's going to be like solid. Can help to the back, definitely, but maybe not enough. So yeah, not very sure. Yeah, maybe we can open this a little bit for experimentation and suggestions and see if anyone gets motivation to
But again,
help.
ideally, that's why if we could get things to passing state, which has been the holy grail, and we've never got there. Then in theory, then the comparisons should just be, it should be passing, and now it fails. But at the moment, we're not there, so the comparisons are always failing and failing.
Yeah, even if we try to go with the aggressive plan of removing packages that are failing and then add them
the
again
problem with
later
that
on.
is then people say, oh, this is a really important package, we need that there to test functionality in Node. So
yeah, it's not an easy negotiation. Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, not very. I mean, it's in a situation that is very hard to move in any direction, honestly, Richard. But yeah, I think. But yeah, I was thinking like, do we have enough visibility of this issue? Like, do you think the rest of collaborators and other members of the different types of stuff are aware of this thing?
I don't know. I mean, we've mentioned it. It was mentioned in the Collab Summit in London in April.
Yeah.
I think Sitchin's a thing people don't really care about until someone says we need a Sitchin run, or someone says
Yeah.
this is found a regression.
Yeah, exactly. That was a good example from last week, right? Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the only thing in Node where I get this feeling that people don't pay attention to it unless they have to.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a thing. You can run it locally. I don't know if anyone ever tries.
I try it. I try it when I React Express and I
I mean,
got it
I
working partially, but
I wouldn't necessarily recommend you run the entire lookup because that
no.
can take hours. But
Yeah.
one or two modules, reasonably good at. There's various things that Stitchim does, with this tagging mechanisms, which maybe we could use more of. But again, don't know what we would use as criteria for selecting tags. But again, if you're running it locally, that's an option to cut down the lookup.
Yeah. Yeah, because also if maybe the next step for us is trying to get like some kind of an output that we can analyze. So that way maybe we can do some statistics long term, saying like, look, we have this package always passing and never more, or because also the perception, I think the problem also from the user is like when I use kind of Goldmine, like most of the time is because I do a commit or because I'm preparing a release, right? So I remember more or less what happened the last time, but has been like time pass between, right?
Yeah, I mean, SitGym is mainly for releases, and some of the majors, I think, are supposed to have SitGyms. And then anything else that's deemed risky or
Yeah, exactly.
if people are just not sure. So, for example, if something is potentially breaking,
yeah, that's the kind of
say,
things.
let's run SitGym. But equally, the thing to remember with SitGym is it's a warning system. It's not a rubber stamping system. So if Sitchin finds something, then that's potentially something we need to look at. If it doesn't find anything, then it doesn't mean you're in the clear. It just means that we've not run any tests that have found any problems.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. That was a great summary. Okay. Thank you for this super summary, Richard. Do we want to discuss anything else? I think this was the last topic in the agenda, unless I skipped one accidentally. Let me double check. No, I think that was officially the last one in the agenda. Marco, Richard, do you want to discuss something else?
No.
Okay. So I think so far that was all for the meeting today. Thank you for watching us in YouTube, for those who are watching us in YouTube, and nice to see you all, team. See you soon.
Yeah,
See ya. Bye-bye.
Bye.